Hey, I'm Spencer Trippy, and thanks for watching Ampharosity. Today I'll be going over what to expect at this week's state tournaments and exactly how to prepare for it. My prediction for going into states this weekend is that we'll see a good 5 decks being played, mainly, and reaching far in the competition. Mainly we'll see Yveltal EX. He's a very versatile card. I can see him being played in many different types of decks. So I think we'll see a lot of him. Next, we got the different plasma variants with the Lugia here. Many straightforward decks using Lugia and Muscle Band are very powerful and definitely had a great showing at some of the previous tournaments. And I think it made it to top 2 in the Singapore regionals or states. So that's a very powerful card. Then also we have Aromatisse decks, so basically Fairy. Whether they're using Plasma Pokemon or basic Fairy with Xerneas XY, either way it's a very powerful deck and I will definitely see play, and I believe they did win the Singapore States just a week or two ago. So definitely a very powerful deck. Then we also have Genesect. Again, it's been very consistent, very powerful. So there's no denying that that will definitely make a great showing at the tournament. That is actually the deck that I'm planning on playing. So definitely keep a lookout for those. That's going to be a very strong play, just like it has been. And then lastly, of course, the strongest card by far clearly is Ampharos. So anyway, now we'll just take a quick look in depth on these decks, and I'll tell you exactly how to use them, how to play them, and how you might want to go about playing against them. Alright, so the first deck I'm going to take a quick brief look at is Darkrai Yveltal. Now this is a very popular pair. People have been hyping up since the reveal of Yveltal EX, and it's a great combo. Basically, you're going to get an unlimited damage cap with Yveltal, something that no Darkrai deck has really been able to do before. So not only do you have a great card, obviously proven by its almost over 2 years of great play with Darkrai EX almost always being high in the format. Darkrai is great, but now it gets an even better chance to excel with the unlimited damage cap of Yveltal EX. So with this card, you can basically hit for unlimited damage, but that comes in great with the new card Muscle Band. Adding 20 damage essentially makes it even better. So you've got already a built-in plus 20 for each energy, 2 at the minimum, so that's already doing 60 damage. 80 with the Muscle Band, so you can effectively hit 80 turn 1 if you're going second, and if not, you can go turn 2, and you'll probably already have an extra energy on there, so you can hit for 100, or at the max 120 with like a DCE. So that's usually around the most you're going to do, but that's turn 1 or turn 2, so that's pretty strong. So it's definitely a great asset, and we also have an asset in the form of Yveltal XY. The reason why this one's good is its HP, honestly, is its key component, having 130 HP. That's great. When I play as my Genesect deck, I have a lot of trouble with these guys like Xerneas XY and Yveltal EX because of that 130. I can't hit it for one-hit KO with the Megalo Cannon. Also, it's got the attack Oblivion Wing, which does 30 or 50 with a Muscle Band if you want to get that extra damage out there. And then it's going to act as a Dark Patch. So basically any Dark Energy in your discard pile, just put it on a Pokemon on your bench. So that's really powerful and can kind of block most attackers because they usually can't hit 130 unless they're doing something excessive like a Black Ballista or a G-Booster, which they really don't want to do on a non-EX Pokemon. So it makes a pretty effective wall, and I've honestly considered running Deoxys in my Genesect deck that I try to not do for my specific set, just so I can get, with the Muscle Band and Deoxys, one-hit KOs on these guys like Yveltal and Xerneas XY. But haven't gotten quite to the point where I feel it's absolutely necessary, but just goes to show how pesky and how useful that card can really be in buying you a turn and getting some energy out there. Next is obviously Sableye. This has been a key card in almost every Darkrai deck. He is great. I only run 2 of them in my list because the main point is to go straight out aggressive with Yveltal EX. But in case you're running low on resources, you don't want to deck out, or you just don't have that opportunity, you really want to swing in for the one-hit KO that you might need, don't want to risk being hit, you just run in with Sableye, get some resources back, reset your game state, and he works out great as he has in the past. Then next, we've got a really interesting card that really just started seeing use, and I honestly heavily recommend it if you're going to play an Yveltal deck, or any deck that needs a little help in the Virizion Genesect matchup, and that is Spiritomb. Spiritomb is the bane of Genesect Virizion's existence. Personally, I hate testing against this card with Genesect just because how powerful it is. Hex Mirror is a good attack, but the main selling point is Sealing Scream, the ability. So basically, each player can't play an A-Spec card from his or her hand. So this is going to stop G-Booster, which is extremely important. No longer can I one-shot Yveltal EXs or Darkrai EXs. Instead, I have to rely on 2 Megalo Cannons, which honestly can be pretty difficult, seeing as Yveltal EX can get that damage up there. Megalo Cannon requires 3 energy by itself. So normally they're going to knock me out before I can get a second hit on them. So that means I have to give up 2 prizes and somehow get a second Genesect out in enough time to not only knock out the Genesect, but take out whatever you have powered up next. So it's a difficult play for the Genesect player, and makes Spiritomb an extremely useful asset. Also, one last thing I'd like to point out is that the only way for really Genesect decks to knock out Spiritomb is to use Megalo Cannon. And most likely Spiritomb will be on the bench, so they're going to have to attach a Plasma Energy, red signal up the Spiritomb, and hit it with a Megalo Cannon. Because as you can see, it has 80 HP, and that is 10 short of Virizion's damage cap. With the 50 plus the Muscle Band, it's only doing 70, so it's really not going to work out when Virizion wants to take that out, so you can try to save your Genesect. So really, all Yveltal players are going to have an opportunity, even if the Spiritomb goes down, to then rush in with their Yveltal and just try to get a good chunk out of the Genesect, if not knocking it out. So definitely a great play, makes things 10 times more difficult for the Genesect player, and might help you in like a few other matchups, like if, say, someone is using like a rogue deck with Life Dew or Rock Guard. Otherwise, you probably want to use your A-Spec rather than negating both of you. But it's an interesting call, but for sure the Genesect matchup. And then the last card I just wanted to mention for this deck is Catcher. Catcher has been thought to be like taken out of the format, which is definitely not true. The card, while relying on the coin flip, is still insanely effective, especially for a deck that can get crucial KOs almost anytime in the mid to late game, and that is Yveltal EX. With your unlimited damage cap, Catcher can be extremely effective, especially when you're relying on the energy that the defending Pokemon has. If there's a fresh Genesect on the board, and the Genesect player promotes Virizion, you're not really going to want to hit that because you most likely can't knock it out since it doesn't have any damage on it. Use Catcher, bring up the Genesect. Even if you're not getting the KO, you're still doing a good 60 more damage if it has the full attack of energy on it. So honestly, Catcher can make or break games and is extremely useful, and I definitely recommend it for this deck. I only play 2 because seeing it is a little inconsistent, it's risky playing too many, but with the Dowsing Machine I also play, I can usually get the job done. Alright, so the next deck I'm going to take a quick look at is Aromatisse and Fairy decks. Since I did just do a video on this particular deck, I'm just going to leave a link to the video in the description, and then just do a quick overview of cards that have been added to the deck since then. So basically, I'll just give a quick overview. Aromatisse, Fairy Transfer, allows movement of Fairy Energy between all your active and benched Pokemon. So incredibly useful, has created a lot of new strategies, and a variant of this just won the Singapore States. So since my video, things that have been added that were in the list is things like Genesect EX. Basically, they have to include Plasma to make him really useful, but seeing as they do run Prism and Rainbow, they can use Megalo Cannon in certain cases. It's usually not always the goal with Genesect, but it definitely is there for like a Blastoise matchup if you want to knock out a Blastoise or a Keldeo. It's definitely there to use it. And but mainly it's for the included Plasma Energy, and when they attach to Genesect, can use Red Signal. So that can be incredibly useful. Then you can just put something active, then move all the energy to one of your Pokemon that can hit that Pokemon for super effect or weakness, and then you can just knock it out in one hit, and best case scenario. So that's why Genesect DX has been included, and it's really good. I really like it in my testing. I find that it's incredibly useful. Another one that's been debated is Landorus EX. Now I've seen this in both straight like plasma variants that run different types of energy. I've also seen this mainly though in the fairy decks, and I think it's really good. If you're planning on using Xerneas EX, can hit for 140. A lot of those decks rely on Pokemon that do snipe damage, like Kyurem or Landorus EX and Darkrai. So basically, when you're hitting for those 30 bench damages, Xerneas can then rush in and then pretty much take out any threat that has a 30 damage already with X-Blast. So, it's a really good card. With Muscle Band, can do 100 damage to a Thundurus if you're going second. So that's first turn, 100 damage for 1 energy, and all you need is the energy and the 1 tool card. So that's really powerful. He's got a bulky 180 HP, so that's definitely helpful. Really great card overall. I really liked it back when like Boundaries Cross was the last set to come out. I played, or Plasma Blast, and I played Landorus Lugia. And that was probably my best deck. I've seen the most success with that one. So I have a good spot in my heart for Landorus EX there. So definitely a great card and a great addition to most fairy decks. Also Plasma, I did see that actually in both players playing at Singapore States Finals had a Landorus EX in their deck, I believe. But anyway, great card. Has had a good showing recently, and you'll definitely see it this weekend. Alright, and the next deck we're going to be going over is Plasma. Now, since the Klasinski Open, Plasma has receded in play slightly because of being very heavily countered towards. But it's slowly risen back up, and with X and Y, Muscle Band has definitely brought it back to the forefront. We have Lugia EX with a Muscle Band is hitting for 140 base. And then with 3 Deoxys on the bench, as long as there isn't a Garbodor or anything that can counter abilities, you're going to be hitting for 170 base. And that is incredibly powerful. That's going to be knocking out lots of popular EXs like Yveltal EX, Genesect, Virizion, plenty more popular EXs. All have 170 HP, and regardless of whether they have damage on it or not, you are knocking them out. And not only that, but because it was with Lugia, you're using Overflow and grabbing 3 prizes. Now, that's just a crazy powerful attack. Really consistent if you get the deck right, and incredibly powerful. You can win in about 2 turns. That's really all it takes. If you're going second, you can attack the first turn if you get that set up, and they have a 170 HP active. You can take it down, and you can get there by turn 2. It is possible to win by turn 2 with this deck. So again, it's very powerful. Things that are essential are Lugia and Deoxys. Now, seeing as we're going with a heavy Lugia focus, trying to hit the whole Pokemon with just Lugia, you're not softening it up with anything. So Deoxys is now an essential part of the deck. So before it was 3 to kind of help all your attackers in general just hit a little higher, more consistent, hitting good numbers. Now Deoxys is needed. You need at least 3 on the bench to be doing the perfect 170 with Lugia. Now that is a little difficult if you're just running 3. So you run 4 Deoxys to increase your odds of getting at least 3 in your deck and not any in the prizes. And so that's going to help you get the 3 on the bench and start going with Lugia as soon as possible. So now you got a better rate of drawing into Deoxys, you got a better chance of having just enough to power up Lugia, and a better chance of winning. So those 2 are definitely the main focus of the deck and are extremely powerful combo. Next we have Thundurus EX. He's obviously been a staple in all Plasma decks. Can get back energy, including the crucial Plasma energy, because you only have 4, and you are discarding them with Lugia. So it's going to be crucial to get those back if you need them. Although, hopefully, if you're able to hit EX Pokemon, you can get just use 2 Plasma energy, and that's really all you need to win. but in tricky situations you might have to attach to a Deoxys and retreat. You never know. Also, another way that your plasma energy could go down is Genesect EX. This is a pretty crucial card, however, although it has a very heavy cost of having to use that plasma energy. But with Lugia, you want to be hitting specific cards, the ones that you can knock out and grab as many prizes for. So if they promote something like a Darkrai or anything that has over 170 HP and can't be knocked out in one hit, you're going to want to use Genesect to bring up a Pokemon that you can knock out. And basically you have 4. So that honestly is perfect. You get 2 on Lugia, so you can use 2 Plasma Gales, and you use Red Signal twice to guarantee you get 2 hits on 2 Pokemon that you know you can get the 3 prizes for. And well, that's exactly how many you need. It's not always going to happen, so Thundurus is there to pick up the pieces in case things don't go perfectly. But otherwise, you've got a great structure, and you have a great chance of being able to do those 2 hits for 3 prizes and winning the game just like that. Now, if you don't have the Deoxys, if it gets prized or you're having a little trouble, slow start, I've seen lots of plasma players, including this card, which I just mentioned in the last deck, also to counter Thundurus, and that is Landorus EX. So if you're playing Prism, like most of the plasma decks do, in order to use Thundurus' Ride Knuckle, it can also power Landorus' Hammerhead. And with the Muscle Band, you're hitting Thundurus, like I said, for 100 damage in 1 attack for 1 energy. Extremely powerful, and the 30 snipe can help with Lugia, so he doesn't even have to worry about the Deoxys. As long as he has the energy and the Muscle Band, he is knocking them out. So again, very powerful. I just love the synergy these 2 cards have together, and the consistency it has in many, many matchups. So basically this is the one I'm going to be playing at States this weekend. I've thrown a few things in, I'll just get to in a minute. Basically, I'm going to be doing an extensive video on this deck specifically soon, so I'm just going to go over the basics really quick. Your goal is to start with Virizion, and with its Verdant Wind ability, it's very versatile in many decks, but this one specifically, any Pokemon that has a grass energy attached to it can't be affected by a special condition. So even if it's on the bench, you have a Genesect with a grass energy, which they usually do, can't be affected by special conditions. So this is going to shut down things like Exceligor. That pretty much makes that matchup an auto win. So that's great. In the case of Mega Venusaur ever being played, not that I see it though, its attack that would cause the 2 special conditions, it's completely negated. So very useful, very powerful. And then Emerald Slash, grass and a colorless energy. So even your Plasma, while you're not, best case scenario, not attaching them to Virizion, could be used in a worst case scenario. And for 50 damage, it deals 50 damage and then allows you to search your deck for 2 grass energy, attach them to Genesect. That's extremely helpful. Can get it set up a whole turn earlier than it would have. And basically just helps out a lot. With Muscle Band, however, Virizion has become increasingly useful. It can knock out things for 70 HP. So Sableye, it can knock out in 1 hit. That's become extremely useful. Now, rather than having to rely on Genesect's 20 bench snipe damage to knock out the Sableye a turn later, you can now do that the first turn, forcing him to bring something else up, which then Genesect can then hit for a higher attack cost. Higher damage output. So it's extremely useful, and I'll get your prizes faster. Now, for this week at States, I am predicting a lot of like Plasma and Fairy decks, and those are going to mainly use special energy. So I like Genesect and Virizion for their consistency, but I knew I need a way to handle such a large popularity of those decks, seeing as they can get the best of Genesect Virizion if they're allowed to set up. So I thought, what's the best way to counter that? And the main way I came up with is using a combination of Enhanced Hammer, which is going to just automatically discard the special energy. So you can pick and choose. With Fairy decks, you might often pick Prism over anything over like other ones, because if they have play Plasma and they're playing Lugia, you're like, oh well, your first option is definitely to go for the Plasma, so they can't Plasma Gale. But you could go for Prism in certain scenarios. That way they can't power up their diverse parts of attackers, and it's going to make them a lot more difficult just to play the game in general. So it's up to you whether which ones you take off, but it's definitely a game you got to play by ear during the game itself. Couldn't just be decided outside of the game. But either way, great play for any deck using special energy. And when you're putting special energy in the discard, there's a specific card that has been used with Genesect Virizion in the past that I mentioned earlier that has been extremely effective, and that is a Driplim Chain. Now, I've gone specifically with this one because it relies on the discarding of special energy, which Enhanced Hammer does. I don't necessarily like the Derail one, even though it is the free retreat. The fairy decks are going to be playing special energy, but they might not necessarily be using plasma Pokemon. So my Driplim then wouldn't be that effective. So I play a 2/2 line of the Driplim, this one right here. And I feel that's more consistent. It goes with an overall theme of special energy, which is more popular than an overall theme of plasma. So I think that's much more consistent, much more useful, and overall has worked really well for me, and I'm hoping it drives me farther into the tournament at States this year. Hoping it goes really well. I'm planning on playing it at Wisconsin States this weekend, and if that goes well, then definitely moving on to the Illinois States. But if it doesn't work out too well this weekend, I might have to switch up my list and see how it works, or I might even just switch decks entirely. I'm not really sure. So next we're just going to go on and look at how to prepare. So I've already shown you what decks you can use, but like how you should go about preparing for the tournament outside of your actual list. So the first step in making sure that you're ready for your States adventure is checking your deck for any proxies. Something that I often do is if I'm making several decks like I usually am, I don't have enough supporters to put in every single deck. So I'll use a random card I'm not too interested in and using, and I'll make it a proxy for a supporter. Like here I have an N, but obviously if I were to forget this and go into a tournament just assuming I have all the correct cards, well then I could be in a lot of trouble because I don't obviously have any supporters, and instead I'm running a Fungus that is defaced and just completely not legal. Otherwise, you can just take a look for the rare occasion where you have a Pokemon or a card that's just completely out of the format, like this Dawn Fan here. I'm really not sure how they got in there, but you never know when these things could arise, so you just want to make sure that you have your exact list and nothing is out of place, and that you always have the cards that are tournament legal and aren't going to leave you in a sticky situation when you want to go play. The next step in preparing your 60 cards is checking your sleeves, making sure none of them have creases or any marks that could be seen as cheating and get you disqualified from a tournament. The worst thing is to be doing really well and then turn out to be disqualified from the tournament for a simple mistake that you weren't even intending to do. Another quick recommendation is that I wouldn't recommend playing sleeves like these. While I love them and they look fancy, in a tournament setting, I really only have 60 of these, and unless I want to spend another $20 buying a whole other stack of them just to replace in the worst case scenario that they rip, could be costly for some and really not worth it. So I recommend going with like either Ultra Pro, or personally I like mattes, and these are really cheap, and if you run out you can easily get plenty more for about $3-4. So it's a great investment to just go with these. They're going to be effective, they're going to look good, it's just a mono color, no one can call you out for cheating. Also, if you look here, like this is my Genesect deck, and I play sleeves that have Genesect. So obviously that's going to give a little indication to my opponent that I might be playing this, so they might be a little bit more likely to start off with a Pokemon, if they have more than one, that will be more ready to take on that challenge. And that can give them an advantage, and that's really not what we want in a tournament play where winning really is the main goal. So this is just a blank green sleeve. You never know what I have. You know, they might assume that green, it's a grass type, but obviously I play Yveltal, so maybe you could even throw them off. So if you want to try to learn like mind games, Metacall, just prepare your sleeves in a way that might give your opponent the wrong impression. It's up to you, but to say consistently, well, I just say don't play these. They're hard to manage, expensive, and it's just a lot more beneficial to you to go with plain Ultra Pro or matte sleeves. The most important aspect, arguably, to any tournament is being there. So make sure that you are planned and ready to leave for the tournament, to get there on time and at the right place. Now we have great assets in the form of smartphones that have GPSs in them. So make sure if you don't have one of these, you've written out the directions, you've got a map. If you don't, make sure you look up where the tournament is being held, how to get there, and you can pretty much look up any place you need to go. Just type it in, type your address, directions will pop up and guide you as you're driving. This is going to be extremely important. Often tournaments are extremely early. I know the Wisconsin states, it starts, registration opens at 8 till 9:30. So that's going to be a very small window. You're going to have to leave extremely early to get there if you live more than, like me, and more than an hour or two away. So it's going to be difficult, so you're going to have to get up early and have this prepared so you can leave with ease early in the morning and have no problems. Another great aspect of Pokemon, just besides playing the game competitively, is trading. Another great thing I like to do is I like to have a great binder just full of Pokemon and cards that I like to trade. So I prefer to use a brand, Monster Protectors. They're a great brand for binders, and they have the side loaders, which I prefer. So as you see, I got plenty of cards for a trade. I love having a trading community. I just love to be able to trade cards with everybody. So I keep this, I keep everything in here. So if I ever need to trade anything, I can just present this to other people. They can look at what I have, see what kind of cards I'm playing with, just see all kinds of cool things. And it's just a great way to share and trade your experience. So make sure to bring those to tournaments. Keep it in a handy dandy binder right there. It's much better than a box. Things can't get lost as easily in a binder, and I just recommend that. It's just a more convenient way to trade. And last but not least, the key to success at any tournament is having fun. Realize that sometimes tough matchups will appear, and you may even happen to take the loss. But regardless of how well you do, always realize that you can improve your skills by analyzing what happened, what were the disadvantages of your play styles, and then know what to play in order to win next time. Thanks again for tuning in to Ampharosity for this week's episode of What's in the Deck Box. Make sure to check back next week when I do an in-depth review of Genesect Virizion. Hope you guys have a good weekend at States, and make sure to come up to me and say hi if you see me at any of the tournaments. I'll be at this week's Wisconsin and hopefully next week's Illinois. Hope to see you guys again soon. I'll also be handing out free Ampharosity cards while supplies last.